Hello, folks. I'm Susanna Morgan. I use she, her pronouns. I am the CEO at Oregon Food Bank.
And I'm Andrea Williams. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm Oregon Food Bank's Deputy CEO.
And welcome to Oregon Food Bank's Donor Appreciation event.
We are so glad to see you all here today. Thank you for joining us. And please say hello in the chat to the right of the video and let us know where you're tuning in from.
Today's event is about gratitude. I am so proud of the work we have been able to do this year, and it could not happen without you, our beloved community, who have been partners with us in this work. Together, we are able to address hunger today and to work to end hunger's root causes. Thank you. Thank you. Before we begin our program today, I'd like to lead us through Oregon Food Bank's land acknowledgement to recognize this land that was stolen and to honor our Indigenous and Native American communities. We acknowledge that Oregon Food Bank's main building rests on the traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of the Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. Multnomah is a band of Chinooks that lived in this area. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge that Portland, Oregon has the 9th largest urban Native American population in the United States, with over 380 federally recognized tribes represented in our neighbors in the urban Portland metropolitan area. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many Indigenous and Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. We are so pleased to be able to introduce some of our esteemed guests to talk about the theme of today's event, reimagining food systems. We will share messages from Senators Wyden and Merkley, and we will be welcoming a few live guests as well. Yay! But before we get into that, I'd like to invite you all to watch a short video highlighting the work that you all helped make possible. We hope you all enjoy seeing the reach and impact we have together in our efforts to end hunger for good. $860,000 people in Oregon and Southwest Washington access food from one of the 1,400 food sites that are associated with the Oregon Food Bank Network. We're sitting in the statewide headquarters for Oregon Food Bank. It is the regional food bank for Multnomah and Clackamas counties. This is also the statewide warehouse, so food comes in by the truckload and gets split 21 ways. We are unique in that we are statewide and that we are organized as a network that has existed for 40 years now, very collaborative, and lots of local leadership.
It's really incredible to be connected to the community in this way. Food is a universal language.
Having the ability to be part of Oregon Food Bank communities means giving back to the community. I see that Oregon Food Bank helped a lot of people, especially providing food to the community of color.
When I was growing up, I had a lot of friends personally who got food from Oregon Food Bank. It's an organization that actually has actionable results and helps a lot of people.
I used to think that we could solve this problem with enough food. And now I know that's not the fundamental problem, because on the day when we distribute enough food, we'll have to do the same thing the next day, and the next day, and the next day. We're working on the root causes of hunger so that we are not just about getting people food today, but we're about putting ourselves out of business and creating a world in which hunger never happens.
To create a world in which hunger doesn't exist, we must change the policies and systems that create hunger and poverty in the first place. This requires us to address the root causes of hunger, which are inequities that exist across race, gender, immigration status, and more. We know that the people who have experienced disproportionate hunger and poverty for generations include people of color, immigrants and refugees, single moms and caregivers, and trans and gender nonconforming people. So how do we go about achieving systems changes? Well, at Oregon Food Bank, we start by increasing access to food. We source and distribute food to food assistance sites, and through this service action, we develop networks. We coordinate and resource diverse networks of partners in our hunger relief programs with broader food systems change, including partners in SNAP outreach, our grocery stores, community organizations, philanthropy, and more. And through this, we develop relationships. We develop relationships with and elevate community leaders from across the state. These relationships form the foundation of organized groups of people, and we organize people to advance policy and systems change through community organizing, volunteerism, storytelling, coalition building, and advocacy. We are a partner in the food justice movement because we live our values. And we live our values by promoting leadership among those with lived experience of hunger and experience of systemic inequities that drive hunger. We implement within Oregon Food Bank the systems, policies, and practices that support racial, gender, and economic justice. Through this building on service towards organizing, we are able to make concrete systems changes for our communities. And so I'm really excited to hear more from Susanna about what the Oregon Food Bank, along with all of you, have been able to achieve this year.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm so honored to be doing this work with you and all of you. I know together we can, and in fact we are, changing the systems that create and perpetuate hunger. Since we last talked, our communities have continued to face the worst food insecurity we've seen in generations. As you may have heard us say before, the best defense against hunger is a strong offense, making sure we have living wage jobs, affordable housing, accessible healthcare in our communities. Our safety net programs like SNAP and unemployment are the next line of defense, supporting millions of Oregonians through challenging times. And our emergency food assistance network exists as the last line of defense to ensure that when existing policies and safety nets fail, food remains available to those of us facing hunger. With the direction of our Policy Leadership Council, we advocated for a number of legislative initiatives this past spring. Across the state, more than 1,000 members of the Oregon Food Bank supporter community, that would be you, joined partners and allies to advocate for change through calls, texts, emails, and public testimony. And we won! Yay! Every piece of legislation that we advocated for passed.
So exciting.
Some of the policies we won together include affordable housing and houselessness protection, due process for our immigrant and refugee neighbors, and overtime protection for farm workers, our neighbors who put food on our tables. We also work together to make sure that we all are knowledgeable voters. This spring, we conducted a survey to ask each candidate for Oregon's next governor to share what decisions they were ready to make, which policies and programs they would support, and what solutions they will bring to ensure all our communities have consistent access to nutritious, culturally appropriate food. You can read all about our legislative wins and candidate responses on our website. Go to OregonFoodBank.org/2020 session wins and OregonFoodBank.org/governor. And we have some more exciting news. Andrew, you ready?
So much good news.
You ready?
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Okay. We learned today, just a couple hours ago, that USDA has improved Oregon State's meat inspection program. Okay, meat inspection.
What does this mean?
I know, it's a little wonky, but Oregon Food Bank and the ranchers and producers around the state, the Oregon State Legislature, the Oregon State bureaucracy, so many folks from around the state have tried for more than 2 decades to make locally produced meat more accessible to the local community. And this finally changes that. Oregon meat will get to Oregonians in a much quicker, faster way. It is amazing.
That is something to celebrate.
Again, so exciting. This kind of win is what happens when we all work together. And this is what a movement looks like. Thank you for being part of our movement. And so we're so proud of all this work, especially in the face of all the terrible challenges we face together. We're also looking forward to the future, towards ending hunger for good. Which brings me to today's topic, reimagining food systems. As you'll hear from our guests today, our food systems need a major overhaul. This is a universal problem that affects every person on this planet. What drives me and the work we do at Oregon Food Bank is the knowledge that our community deserves economically, environmentally, and racially just food systems. We all deserve culturally relevant, fresh, nutritious food that's sustainably grown, produced, and distributed locally.
Absolutely.
Equitably accessible small agriculture will lead to economic opportunity and vitality throughout our region through community food centers, land access, and growers' support and support for food justice. We will create food centers and farming systems designed, owned, and operated by BIPOC, immigrant and refugee, and trans and gender nonconforming communities. We are rooted in equity, and we are rising for food justice. So with this shared vision, I'm honored to share these messages from Oregon Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley to talk about our joint efforts to end hunger here in Oregon.
For years, the Oregon Food Bank has done incredible work getting food on tables and in pantries across the state. That was especially true in the last 2 years. And we were faced with economic consequences that hit our communities with a gut punch. I was proud to see the Columbia Gorge Food Bank use more than $100,000 in federal funds to renovate the newly purchased warehouse to better serve its community. The staff recently told me they're collecting a bounty of local fresh produce to distribute food to families in each corner of the region. I'll be working hard to ensure continued federal support for the Gorge and Ontario food banks, as well as those in Portland. But combating hunger requires an all-hands-on-deck approach. No Oregonian should have to go without a meal, and thanks to the important work of the Oregon Food Bank, many don't have to. I'm all in for the Oregon Food Bank. Thanks to everybody for their continued support of a real Oregon treasure. We've got lots to do in the days ahead, and I look forward to doing it with you.
Senator Jeff Merkley here, and greetings to everyone participating in this wonderful virtual event, recognizing and celebrating the vital work of the Oregon Food Bank. And I want to give a big shout out to Susanna Morgan for her incredible leadership. We all know that even in the best of times, many of our fellow Oregonians struggle day to day to put food on their tables. Nearly 1 million are struggling to make ends meet, to afford to put food on the table while paying for childcare, for healthcare, and for other basic needs. I know the struggles that these folks are facing. I grew up hearing stories about my grandmother who lived in a boxcar during the early days of the Great Depression, struggling to get by and feed her family. When I heard those stories, I had the same thoughts that I have every time I hear that 1 in 5 Oregonians is experiencing food insecurity in a land of abundance, ingenuity, and opportunity like the United States. No one should have to go hungry. That's why, since opening your doors in 1982, struggling Oregonians in our cities and rural communities alike have been so fortunate to have the Oregon Food Bank. This is especially true over the last 2 years. Throughout the pandemic, the food bank was there for millions of Oregonians in need, for essential workers and those who lost their jobs, for thousands more who were already confronting systemic challenges that drive hunger and poverty. Time and again, you've shown how vital it is to build community connections, develop strong, lasting, private-public coalitions to take on the challenge of hunger. The Columbia Gorge Food Bank has done an incredible job creating those connections and coalitions, working with healthcare workers, tribal and minority organizations, local orchards and farmers, and more to serve free, fresh, nutritious food to over 5,000 community members every month. Over the years, I've been honored to partner with you all, as well as the staff and volunteers at the 21 regional food banks and 1,400 food assistance sites. Whether it's been fighting to increase SNAP benefits, or TFAP storage and distribution funds, or this past appropriation cycle in which I was thrilled that Senator Wyden and I were able to secure $100,000 for the food bank. Or in my private life, running an Ironman with my 18-year-old daughter, Bryn, to raise money for the Oregon Food Bank back in 2016. I hope that we're able to get even more funding and resources this time around for projects like the Community Food Center and Food Bank in Ontario that you all are planning to build to help serve Malheur and Harney counties. I'll just close by quoting Jeff Bridges, the actor, who once said, "One of the greatest feelings in the world is knowing that we as individuals can make a difference. Ending hunger in America is a goal that is literally within our grasp." Well said. Each and every one of you should be feeling great today because each and every one of you is making a difference in people's lives. So thank you for all that you're doing. Enjoy this wonderful event celebrating the work of this organization and all the folks who are part of it. And then let's get back to work putting an end to hunger in Oregon.
Thank you so much, Senator Wyden, Senator Merkley, for your amazing messages of support, for your championship, for your partnership, for your friendship, for your work. And thank you both for calling attention to the amazing work that's happening in the Dells and Ontario. Okay, Andrea, we got more breaking news.
I can't believe we have more news.
Can you handle it? Okay, so more breaking news from Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley's office. As of 4 p.m. today, the Senate Appropriations Committee has moved forward a congressionally directed request for $5 million from Oregon Food Bank.
Oh
$5 million!
That's so exciting!
This includes funding for the Ontario Community Food Center and the Columbia Gorge Food Bank. So there's still a few steps to go in the Senate appropriations process, but if we make it all the way through, this will be the largest appropriation that Oregon Food Bank has ever received.
Wow,
so Senators Wyden and Merkley, we're celebrating
Thank
you and your support and your championship with us today. This is so inspiring. We're truly grateful to have you both as partners in this work.
Wow, Susanna, I don't know if I can take much more good news today. That is so exciting. Now I have the pleasure to introduce you to some of our colleagues in Ontario.
Hey!
Susanna,
we were just there.
We were just there. Susanna and I were just out in Eastern Oregon. We were in Ontario visiting with our colleagues, and I'm so excited that they're able to join us here today. They're going to talk to us about reimagining food systems to be more equitable and sustainable. And so I would love to welcome them. It's so good to see you virtually now. Lindsay Grosvenor, Eddie Melendrez, and Sheila Hyatt to our program. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to see you all again.
We had some wonderful conversations in Ontario this week, but I have so many more questions about the work that you're doing in Ontario. And so we're gonna have a discussion here. And first I'd like to start with Sheila. And I'd love to start with you. If you could tell us about yourself and how you got involved in food banking in the Ontario region.
Yes, thank you, Andrea and Susanna, for having me today, and my colleagues, Lindsay and Eddie. To start off, I moved to Ontario community in the fall of 2004 and raised my children here. In 2007, while working at a local bank, I was approached by the former food bank branch manager, Peter Lawson, about an opening in Ontario. And I made the leap of faith to change my career to food banking. I've now been with Oregon Food Bank for 15 years and have worked every position in our branch, from the warehouse specialist to now the branch manager.
That's amazing, Sheila. We're so fortunate that you joined us. You're from the local community. I'm so glad to be able to call you my colleague. My next question for you is, when did you know that it was time to expand the Oregon Food Bank operations in your community?
Yes. So before COVID even hit, we were already feeling the space constraints of our current warehouse. This has created challenges around building orders for our current partner agencies, as well as the ability to add new partner agencies. With the addition of 2 new staff members whose roles are to build relationships in the community and increase food access, for our entire service area, both Malheur and Harney counties, we knew it was time to expand Oregon Food Bank's operations and find a new location.
Thank you for sharing that, Sheila. I know there's so much need, and thank you for telling us a little bit about that. Now, one more question for you, Sheila. Tell us a little bit about the future of food banking at the Ontario Food Bank branch. What are you most excited about that is happening next?
So to start off, we've been working with an architect to draw up plans for our proposed new facility in Ontario. The diagram that I was hoping we would be seeing at this point, I'm not sure if others are, is the initial design for our future warehouse and community food center. What is unique about this plan is that we were approached by an affordable housing developer asking if we would be interested in using a pre-existing commercial kitchen that was once attached to an old skilled nursing facility that they were remodeling. This kitchen building is approximately 5,500 square feet. And with the new addition, our new facility would stand at 22,000 square feet, which is over 16,000 square feet larger than our current space. We chose this particular layout because it allows for both indoor and outdoor gathering space between the healthcare center, affordable housing complex, and community food center. These plans are a very rough draft, as our goal is to gather as much input from the community as we can to include their ideas for what we do with the community kitchen space. We are currently in the beginning stages of a feasibility study for this site, and I would like to point out that with the rough draft that you can now see, the commercial building at the top northeast corner, and that we are looking to adding a flex space, the color purple there on the west side of the building, and then continuing south with an admin space colored in a pale orange, and our new warehouse that was colored in green. We chose this specific design as it allows for a joint collaboration of events between the healthcare center and the affordable housing site. From an operational standpoint, I am super excited about our increased space and storage capacity, which allows us to bring more food into the community. In addition, I'm excited about having an on-site pantry to help increase access to food for our community.
Sheila, that is so exciting and amazing to think about not only the increased capacity, but also the opportunity for collaboration with the affordable housing complex, with the healthcare services, all in that area. What a beautiful vision. And Susanna and I had a chance to walk with you all through that site, and we're just so excited for this idea. So thank you for walking us through that plan, this vision, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences that have led us to this moment. To build on this vision, I would like to invite some of our other staff members, Lindsay and Eddie, welcome, to speak about why this work is so meaningful in the Ontario community. And so I'm going to start with Lindsay. Lindsay, can you tell us, get us a little started by telling us about yourself and your connection to the Ontario community?
Thanks, Andrea. I was actually born and raised in Ontario and chose to stay here to work and raise my family. So obviously this community is near and dear to me. I've worked in health and social services my entire career, so have seen firsthand the inequities of both our food and health systems here, so and everywhere, right? I'm actually a registered dietitian by trade, but truly a social justice warrior at heart. And so when the opportunity presented itself to work for Oregon Food Bank and on this Community Food Center project, I jumped at the chance.
We're so lucky to have you, Lindsay, and I love how we have so many staff members who are embedded, are part of the communities that we serve. Eddie, could you tell us a little bit about yourself too and your connection to the Ontario community?
Yes, thank you. Eddie Melendrez, he, him pronouns. My grandparents migrated from Texas to work the fields, with my parents setting roots in the area. My first memories were, as a kid were growing up in Vail, Oregon. When my mother and father separated as a kid, I ended up moving with my mom to Bakersfield, California. I would visit my father in the summertime where we continued to work the fields. I ended up moving back to Vail in 2006 after a boxing injury. I was able to be around my father more and reconnect. And as soon as I could, I volunteered for the local youth boxing program. One opportunity led to the next, and connections that helped me build relationships in my community through volunteer work, mentoring, and community service and building. And I think those are what led me to where I am today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eddie. You're such a leader and pillar in your community, and we are so fortunate to have you as part of the Oregon Food Bank family now. I'm going to take this next question to you, Eddie, and then go to Lindsay. But in your experience, Eddie, how have you seen localized wraparound services better serve your community?
Well, I would see, in my experience, I've seen wraparound services work and not work regarding my time serving at-risk youth in Maher County. When it doesn't work, people's lives are at risk of experiencing more trauma and continued stressors. One example of more stress was all the different appointments and locations a person had to make when I worked at risk youth. This is a barrier for many to take time away from work or to even find the transportation to make these appointments. When I've seen wraparound services really help our communities, when organizations remove barriers by having all these services in one location, specifically working with the Maher County Juvenile Department. Youth who were under supervision would have access to a team of mental health workers, counselors, mentors, and more to build a plan to meet all the needs of that youth. So I'm excited to hear about the Community Food Center coming to Ontario so we could better serve those communities most at need. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Eddie. And Lindsay, how about from your perspective? I know you have a lot of health background, and now you're working with us on food justice. Tell us a little bit about your perspective on how you've seen localized wraparound services better serve your community.
Sure. I actually previously worked for the local health center that we will eventually be sharing a campus with. And in that role, I actually worked alongside community health workers to provide wraparound services for our patients that were experiencing not only hunger, but also just difficulty paying their rent, getting transportation to their medical appointments. And when we were able to help connect them to those resources that were preventing them from seeking healthcare or accessing food, they were just much more likely to be able to focus on their overall health. And I'm super excited about the opportunity to have our community food center be co-located with the same health center, as well as an affordable housing complex in honestly one of our most under-resourced communities in Ontario, so that we can really kind of replicate this model.
Thank you so much for that perspective. It's really helpful to see it from a variety of angles. Moving on to another topic, Lindsay, in terms of the pandemic, how has the COVID-19 pandemic transformed the needs of the community?
Thank you for asking. It's changed things a lot. And when the pandemic first hit, some of our local partner agencies actually scaled back their services, primarily because many of their volunteers were also in that highest risk category because of their age. And what this did was actually decrease or made it more difficult for us to more effectively and efficiently distribute food in our community. On top of that, we also had issues with kids not receiving meals in schools and seeing our food supply being short on the store shelves, and that was really scary. So this is actually when a group of community partners came together to address these food access needs. And we held 3 mass food distributions in Ontario. We actually had over 200 households show up in just under a 2-hour time frame. And these events, really coupled with the ongoing effects of the pandemic now, has brought to light the really worsening needs of food access of our rural community. But this has also become the catalyst in these collaborative efforts in making the plans for this community food center.
Thank you, Lindsay. It's so interesting to hear that even through challenge, there were a lot of lessons learned and a lot of innovations that we were able to glean from that really difficult time that we will move forward into the future. Eddie, how about you in terms of your perspective? What were you observing in terms of how the pandemic transformed the needs in the community?
Sorry. I think it really highlighted the inequities in our community to who has food access and who doesn't. It transformed our community, allowing us to reimagine how we are doing things. More people need access to support services and to food. It also showed us how vital, essential workers, migrant and undocumented were to our and continue to be for our communities, even as many will forget as things are returning to normal.
Thank you for sharing, Eddie. So many communities were impacted by COVID-19, and it's just really helpful to hear all the different impacts from various communities that we've seen over the course of the last few years. Eddie, going back to you again, talking more about this community food center, how would a community food center in this community be uniquely able to address these community needs that we've been hearing about and talking about?
I think it will just change what's going on in our community. This is something that I dreamed of for a long time, just bringing all these with the community food center to bring organizations together to help those most in need. I think when one person used to make multiple appointments, multiple trips, and to multiple locations, now that same person can access all these essential services in one location. And I feel like when we all come together, we all win. Thank you.
I love that. I love that message, Eddie. Thank you so much. And Lindsay, how about from your perspective, how are you seeing a community food center addressing community needs?
So I agree with Eddie, all of those same things, plus really the community food center can help build capacity and a more coordinated and sustainable food system here in our region. The shared use kitchen itself can provide the opportunity for small scale producers to actually process, package, and distribute their products, as well as help food-focused businesses to grow. And that's really exciting to me. And then really, truly just the physical space of the campus itself creates the space for our community to come together and build that community power, which is super exciting.
Thank you so much. It's so inspiring to hear, what your vision is and what some solutions could be. And when we've been through so many difficult times, something that keeps us going is hope. So I would love to hear from you both. First with Lindsay, what is giving you hope in this moment?
It's truly been that we have some amazing people and organizations in our community in Malheur County specifically that want to see Malheur County residents feel welcome and thrive. And so really that's what brings me hope, along with, of course, our volunteers and our donors too, because together that's how we're going to get to the root causes of hunger.
And Eddie, how about you? What's giving you hope right now?
What's giving me hope is visiting the community food center the other day, the site, and how all the community organizations are coming together and working together, and just thinking about all the people that we're going to help. So this is what brings me hope. Thank you.
Lindsay, Eddie, Sheila, thank you all so much for your insight, for your work in your community, and this very transformational project. I know Susanna and I are very excited, and all of our colleagues and community are excited to see what we learn from this work and find ways to bring initiatives like this to other communities across our state as well. Thank you so much. It's good to see you all.
Thank you both.
I'm like beaming with pride. These are the amazing people we get to work with, Andrea.
I know, we're so lucky.
I know, we are so lucky. Okay, I am pleased to bring you yet another story about our work to reimagine food systems. Our partners at Mudbone Grown and Feed 'em Freedom Foundation have been working a long time to support their community through the cultivation of land ownership, food production, and community building. Let's listen to my friend, Shantae Johnson, as she's joined by Oregon State Senator Akasha Lawrence Spence to talk about the importance of land access and support for growers.
My first job was picking strawberries out at Sylvie's Island. And so I would go with my sisters and my cousins, and I'd earn a little bit of money playing around in the dirt that way. I always loved being outdoors, and my family really nurtured that in me. My grandparents and my parents, just being able to hike, camp, work on my great-grandmother's farm, picking berries was something that got me really excited about agriculture. My name is Shantae Johnson, and I am the Executive Director of Feed 'em Freedom Foundation. And our core mission is to create an educational pipeline into agriculture for Black youth and Black folks that are interested in ag, to create economic prosperity for Black Oregonians. We also focus on regional food security.
Hi, so my name is Akasha Lawrence Spence. I'm a state senator for District 18, and I am really inspired by freedom and decision-making power, especially in communities of color, communities who have historically been robbed of decision-making power. And so for me, food sovereignty is just another part of that, enabling communities to decide what foods they have access to, where they grow it, how they grow it, and who gets to harvest it, who gets to put their hands in the dirt and sow the seeds and putting that food on the table. And if we're trying to really create the wealth that we need in the community, and that's food wealth, we have to also expand our definition of wealth. And for me, it looks like food sovereignty.
Black folks come from this rich heritage of agriculture. It's essential to our livelihood as farmers to have the things and the tools and the support that you need, but it's also essential to the community to be able to have access to good food. And so creating prosperity and bridging that wealth gap happens first with land access, because if you can get on that land and you can work that soil and you can grow the food and you can create jobs and you can create community that way.
One of the things that I'm very excited about is the fact that we were able to pass Senate Bill 1579 in this past legislative session. And what that bill does is it provides money, $15 million, to community-based organizations, which loosely defined, you guys would absolutely qualify. And it enables you to gain access to purchase land, to be able to have home ownership, to be able to help with upskilling workforces. I know that's part of your plan as well, is to help people understand different jobs and roles that they can have in the food systems. And so for us, it's about really ensuring that the Freedom Foundation and all of our BIPOC farmers and producers are able to gain access to that land that is so missing in our communities. We know that in the 1920s, it was 14% of all farmers in the nation were Black farmers. And that number has decreased significantly. It's less than 2% now, even less than that. And so to be able to think about our legacy and our history in toiling this land, and to know that we've been so separated from it, that we no longer have that access, we no longer have that heritage that links us, it's something that we have to repair. And so I'm really excited for that money to get into the hands of organizations like yours to repair that harm and to create community resiliency, to really do that work.
Our vision for Feed 'em Freedom's Foundation's Black Community Food Center is to have a place where that food center would be not only an agricultural hub, but a place where people could access food, build community, and just for it to be truly a community space where people gather. We would create this pipeline into agriculture for Black youth and BIPOC youth that has 3 different types of programs. So one would look like a greenhouse management training program where youth could learn about the nursery field and be able to grow plant starts. The second program that we're looking at launching is a hydroponics program, teaching youth how to grow food in a different way besides just in the dirt, using water. The last agricultural program is mostly focused around a food waste program, looking at doing food rescue through some of our farmers markets and also our food pantries. So taking that food pantry waste and then putting it into the anaerobic digester and making compost tea. Arthur and I, my partner, we ourselves have had to visit food pantries and been food insecure. And so we want the experience to be that when families walk into the Black Community Food Center, they see something gorgeous and beautiful, beautiful Black art. They see things that reflect them and they feel welcomed in that space, and they don't feel like they're getting a handout. They just feel like they're being welcomed in.
Philanthropy can step in, and the philanthropic industrial complex, whereby they are hoarding a lot of resources and a lot of money, and they can rightly give more, so much more than they give. Most foundations only give 2 to 5% of what they hold, and if they gave more and didn't put organizations like yours through hoops to get access to those monies, then we would see a rapid change for our communities. You've been doing it for a while. You've been seeing the way that you are empowering not only producers, but the communities, the consumers. Seeing this happen and being able to put your hands in the soil and be responsible for your own food and your own community is empowering. And so for me, it's bringing those systems together, bringing the policymakers, bringing the philanthropic community together to meet the community-based organizations where they already are is part of the coalition that needs to be built.
I'm excited about the future and about being able to get more active with you, and just having your support and knowing that the community has our back and is there for us. It means the world to us. It is the right time for us to be able to help Black farmers in this moment to realize their dreams of what they're really owed.
This is an opportunity to ensure that everyone who lives in our urban communities and our rural core has access to healthy, whole foods that will ensure our health and wellness and our resiliency long term. Thank you.
Wow. Andrea, isn't Shantae just so inspiring?
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Amazing.
I could listen to that all day. Rewatch that video again.
Again. Okay, but we won't make you do that now.
Yes, and Akasha makes a really interesting point about institutional philanthropy. We need resources flowing into our communities facing hunger right now, not waiting in an investment portfolio for some hypothetical future need. Actually, a recent public opinion poll by the Institute for Policy Studies found that across political orientations, 70% or more of liberal and conservative Americans alike favor increasing foundation payouts to 10%, which is an increase, right? And also requiring donor-advised funds and other grants to have a timeline.
Absolutely. An influx of resources like that would have such a huge impact on the work being led by leaders like Shantae. And on the topic of moving resources into the community, can you handle one more piece of exciting news?
I'm not sure if
One
I
more
can.
celebration?
Let's do one more.
One more. Okay. So Feeding America, the National Network of Food Banks, established a special Food Security Equity Impact Fund in 2021 in order to invest in communities of color that were disproportionately impacted by food insecurity and the COVID-19 pandemic. Oregon Food Bank submitted a joint application with Mudbone Grown and the Feed 'em Freedom Foundation, I'm getting there, just hang on, and the Black Oregon Land Trust in order to establish a Black community food center and agricultural hub. Feed 'em Freedom Foundation's Black Community Food Center and Agricultural Hub, as Shantae was saying, will be a space to celebrate community. It'll include a food pantry, a commercial kitchen, space for cold and dry storage for BIPOC producers, a whole bunch of stuff. The Black Oregon Land Trust and Mudbone Grown are working together to decrease the structural oppression Black and BIPOC farmers face in gaining land access and representation. Funding this vision will truly allow us to reimagine Oregon's food system. So, drum roll, I'm pleased to share that we were recently informed that the Feeding America Fund is awarding $500,000 to support their work.
Oh my God.
$500,000 to Mudbone Grown and Feed
That
'em
is
Freedom.
amazing.
My heart is just so full knowing that this vision of a Black community food center is becoming a reality.
Wow, so much good news today. I think
know.
that one might be my favorite, but I'm not gonna do favoritism.
I don't know. You know, the meat thing is kind of close to my heart, but we love them all.
Well, again, there's been so much good news.
So much good news.
It's such a great way to wrap our time together today. There's so much to celebrate, but also, you know, bringing us back to the reason why we're here, which is where we started, gratitude. So thank you, Susanna, for sharing this amazing news with us, this and many other pieces of good news, and your remarks earlier. It has been really a pleasure to host this event with you, along with having been on a road trip with you earlier this week. And thank you to Shantae Johnson and Senator Akasha Lawrence Spence for that rich story about Feed 'em Freedom Foundation and Black land access. We want to also thank our colleagues, Sheila Hyatt, Lindsay Grosvenor, and Eddie Melendres for your leadership on Ontario. What amazing work you are doing in your community. And of course, big thanks to Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley for their messages of support and for their advocacy with us. We so appreciate you. And thank you so much, the Oregon Food Bank staff and the AV department for their program, making this happen today. And finally, thanks to all of you joining us from the office, home, wherever you might be. We're so grateful for the faith and trust you have placed in us and our partners. Thank you for continuing to go on this journey with us to build strong, resilient communities that never go hungry. And together, that vision is possible with all of us.
It's totally possible. In fact, we're doing it.
We're doing it,
We're
right?
doing
and
it
we have so much more to do. So thank you for spending time with us today, and have a great evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.